Well, my name is Tina, and I have the great pleasure to announce our guests today. The two animation producers, Imke Fehrmann and Jinko Gotoh. And in addition, we'll have the animation effects producing student Cheyenne Chen and the animation director, Maria Trenor-Colomer, in this show. So let me introduce Imke briefly. Imke Fehrmann has worked in the animation industry for over 30 years for companies like Framestore, Animalogic, and Lucasfilm. And most recently, she has produced the first Pakistani animated short film ever to qualify for the Oscars, Sitara, Let Girls Dream. And Imke is also an active member of Women in Animation and co-founded the German initiative that represents women in animation, VFX, and visual arts in Germany. So welcome, Imke. It's great to have you here tonight. And I hand over to you to introduce our second guest, Jinko Gotoh.
Thank you, Tina. That's very nice. And thank you, Animationsinstitut, for this opportunity. I'm honored and very happy to have the opportunity of this conversation with Jinko today. And just a brief introduction. Jinko is an award-winning producer, currently producing Mark Osborne's next feature he's directing for Netflix. Her producing credits include many beautiful and innovative animated films like Klaus, Lego 2, The Little Prince, The Illusionist, as well as 9 and Finding Nemo. And Jinko's commitment to the animation community, and especially her advocacy and support for women, for minorities, and for people of diversity are outstanding and truly inspirational. Jinko is Vice President of Women in Animation. For the Academy of Motion Pictures and Science, she serves on the Executive Committee for the Shorts and Feature Animation branch and on the A2020 Committee to diversify AMPAS members in the branch. She was recently also named Vice Chair for the Academy's Museum Inclusion Committee, and she's also one of the co-leads of the Producers Guild of America's Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, BIPOC, Animation and VFX Working Group. Thank you so much, Jinko, to join us here and to spending your time with us. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Imke, and thank you so much for FMX and the Animationsinstitut for having me today. So I know Imke had asked me to give a little introduction of myself, so let me start. I was born in Japan, and the first film I ever saw as a child was Lady and the Tramp. And I still remember seeing that film at the Hibiya Theater in Tokyo. Shortly after, I met the creator of Astro Boy, Osamu Tezuka, at his studio. And I have to say I was very smitten by animation. And I remember saying to my father, this is what I want to do. And he talked about the fact that Tezuka-san was a medical doctor before he entered into the animation profession. So that kind of tells, that, you're not going to have a profession doing this. We immigrated to the U.S. In the mid-'60s, and I continued to watch movies, and some of my favorite shows on TV was the Charlie Brown and the Peanut series, as well as there are a lot of really great animated commercials growing up as a kid. I think one of my favorite was the Octopus Lady, and was for anti-perspirant. And I didn't realize that, well, in Japan, we're told that octopus have legs, and we found out that in America, octopus have arms. So I was very confused as a child. Just rolling into my studies. So I was always good with math and sciences, and I loved math. So I ended up going to engineering school at Columbia University in New York, and received a Bachelor of Science in Applied Math. Junior in college, I stumbled to a class called Introduction of Computer Graphics. And when I took that class, I thought, oh my God, here's an opportunity that I've dreamt all my life that I thought I would never do, which was I could actually program to make computers draw. I was never good at drawing. So I was really stunned. And I thought, here's my destiny into something I really want to do. So I was very fortunate. There was a professor by the name Lou Katz at the medical school that was doing computer graphics work. And I quickly called him and got a job with him, which allowed me to go to film school at Columbia to receive my MFA in film. But when I got out of school, there wasn't really much work in animation per se for someone like myself, unless I wanted to be a computer programmer. And I, having gone to film school and having paid myself being a computer programmer, I really want to figure out how to get into film. So fortunately, I was able to work in advertising where computer graphics was being used quite a bit. And so I became an agency producer, then shortly after started a small commercial production house and worked in commercials and large format films that was being played at many of the expos at the time. Then, moving on to the late 80s, I was in New York City and we were shooting a big commercial on the New York City rooftop with Bon Jovi. And I saw that Who Framed Roger Rabbit was playing at the theater. When I saw that film, I was like, oh my God, okay, there's got to be a way to do this. And so over the next several years, I got out of the commercial business. And the first film that I worked on was Space Jam. And what was so exciting about Space Jam was that many of the members who had worked on Who Framed Roger Rabbit was coming back. But the technology had really moved forward and we were no longer doing opticals. This was really the first film where digital production was being used. And fortunately, because of my techno background and had done a lot of producing commercials, I was hired to be the CGI producer on that film. Thank you. And then after that, I went over to Disney as a director of digital production, where we built the digital studio where we did the film Dinosaur. And as well, we integrated a lot of CG into their 2D films. And then in 2001, I went to Pixar to work as associate producer on Finding Nemo. But shortly after finishing Finding Nemo, I was, having the hunger of wanting to explore what was outside the studio system. So that has led me outside the studio system, mostly for the last, since 2003. I've also worked at large studio films as well, but have done a lot of work outside of the studio system, working with great filmmakers all around the globe. So this is where it lands me today, and very, very excited to be working with Mark Osborne again. He and I collaborated together on Little Prince, and we're doing a film for Netflix today.
That's really exciting. I would like to go back to your studies and your first films, because you really worked at the golden era in computer graphics. You were at the very start. You were pushing the envelope, setting new standards. And how would you compare that time to today? Because we again have new technologies and a lot of innovation in our animation world. So how is it for you today?
Well, what's so exciting is that when you think about this is that the first film that I worked on, or the first large format film we worked on, we were using supercomputers back then, the Cray machines, and to render a single frame, I think took over 20 hours. So when you think about that and how today we can actually do real-time rendering, that's phenomenal over the course of 30 years. So you can see how quickly technology has advanced, and every technological advancement we have, it really allows the filmmakers to be more creative and do more. So what I love about technology is that it's it enables us as filmmakers to create the worlds and create and characters that we would not be able to do otherwise.
Yeah, I think you mentioned in one talk that at your work on Finding Nemo, for you, the technology and the story really came together. So can you tell us a little bit about that experience of yours of creating stories with truly groundbreaking technology?
Well, what was exciting about Finding Nemo was obviously every shot of the film had water, and water, doing, real simulation of water was a very expensive effort. And I remember, I think the first renders coming out of that waters were taking double digits. And we said, okay, by tax day, 2002, we need to be able to figure out how to render a single frame of water for much less than that. And we had, tremendous group of talented engineers and programmers at Pixar that took the challenge and got the render time down. And back then, we were rendering, all the frames were all single renders, meaning that we weren't doing any compositing work. So all the elements were in that single frame. And in Nemo, it was the first show where we really started considering that, let's look at compositing tool as an asset, and it's fine not to make everything to be a single frame render.
Yeah. And how do you see the opportunities of today's technology? I mean, there's certainly the situation that we're currently in, the pandemic situation, but that's probably not all of it. But how do you look at innovation today when you do your films or when you work with other filmmakers?
Well, what's really exciting is that when Mark Osborne and I started on our film with Netflix, we wanted to do a lot of virtual production. And the reason was that we wanted to create the animation process to be a collaborative process rather than a very linear pipeline process that the CG process has been built on. So we had seen films like Jungle Book and series like The Mandalorian where they were using virtual production. And we thought, why not use virtual production for animation? So we had been doing some work prior to the pandemic and trying to figure out how do we virtually collaborate. We have artists working from different parts of the world. And, we wanted to figure out how to create that live action sense in the virtual world. What's great about live action shooting is that all the department heads and all the crew is there when the director is calling action. That doesn't happen in the CG pipeline or the animation pipeline. So we were looking to figure out a similar way to do that using virtual production. And with real-time rendering, we can do that today. So we were building that pipeline. And then, of course, COVID hit. On March 10th, we shut down our offices in New York City. And I flew back to LA to my home on the 13th. And we have been working remotely and virtually. So I think, COVID has definitely accelerated the whole notion of virtual production. And I think we're very, very fortunate that technology has advanced this far that will allow us to continue to work through the pandemic. And I think animation is really the one industry that has been able to survive.
Yeah, and it's interesting because everyone talks about virtual production for visual effects. And when I was speaking with you, it was really the first time that somebody spoke in depth and with passion about virtual production and animation. And what I found fascinating is that you kind of put it together in a group of keywords, and I think they were really an eye-opener.
Great. So, well, it kind of led me to this is because, I think, virtual production can be defined in so many different ways in terms of what the work you're doing. And, but what was important for me was to figure out a way to have a conversation with people that both know the technology and that do not know the technology. So I came up with the 6 A's is what I call it. Simply because I think, we all like to be very good at what we do. So rather than calling it 6 F's, I thought 6 A's would be great. So the 6 A words I pick, and I'm going to just name it in alphabetical order, and we can talk about each point. Yeah. So the 6 words are accelerate, access, adopt, advocate, affordability, and agility. I think it's a really great way to describe what virtual production does, especially for us in animation. I'm not a VFX expert, so I can't really talk about VFX, but in terms of what it does for us in animation, these 6 words really explain, giving the ability for the filmmaker to collaborate with the department heads, making creative decisions very early on so that we know exactly what we're going to see at the end. The very traditional CG pipeline was based on a 2D pipeline. And I think for 2D, I think it's much more intuitive. In CG, it feels kind of clunky. For example, you have to do layout before you can animate. So what virtual production does allow is for us to actually put that process in parallel, where the director is really directing the animators who are your actors on screen, and they are part of that. And your DP is lighting the animation as part of the process, so that we know what it's going to look like once it's rendered. It may not be the final render, but at least we know how light is working and how camera is working with that performance. So that collaborative effort gives so much creative freedom to all the department heads, and being able to work together in real time with the director. So it just makes a much more collaborative process where the director's vision can be really seen on screen with everyone. So it really does democratize the process and creates a very inclusive way of working, which I think is really, really important, especially when you're working virtually from home. We all know how isolating it is to be working from home, and having that virtual production capabilities allows us to do that, where we can have this inclusive collaborative process, even though we are doing this, virtually.
Yeah, and when you speak about accelerate, so it's also accelerating the creative decision-making process, isn't it? Like, because it's so often that in CG, you sit there with grayscale layout, and then you have to kind of wait till it's animated, and then you see the lighting. So is there any other acceleration that you associate with that word?
Well, accelerate is that I think, in terms of adopting this technology, COVID has accelerated. Because without COVID, I think my guess is it would have taken a little longer for the studios to really buy into virtual production. But now it's a necessity. It becomes a necessity. And so it really does empower everyone to work together and create product while we're still working from home. So that's another use of the word accelerate.
Yeah, and I think the access is really interesting, because suddenly throughout the technology, people can not only access teams, they can also work with other people in other countries that they were maybe not able to communicate with. So I find this, the access has been much better through the...
Absolutely. Animation is a global industry, and, there's very talented artists all around the globe. And again, working with virtual production, you can access that talent from everywhere. So I think that also makes, the animation industry to have no borders, which is something that's important for me personally, because we really want to support people of color and be inclusive and have artists from all around the world. And that access is super important.
Yeah.
And also, I was going to say, the virtual production tools have really given access to students. We had one young student that joined our team, and she's a recent grad from college, and working on her thesis film, she realized that using virtual production tools would allow her to actually produce her film in a much more effective way than using the traditional CG pipeline. So that's how she hopped on. And the tools are so easy that they quickly learned this, and then, again, was able to get a job quickly. So that's one of the things that I think is very important about virtual production, is that it has really democratized the playing field, allowing young new talent to come in and also not have bias about whether you're a woman or a person of color. So that to me is also very important. And that's why we talk about advocacy a lot about virtual production, because we want to advocate and get these tools into everyone's hand and allow them to be part of the filmmaking industry.
Yeah, and that really goes hand in hand with the affordability, because if I think about people in countries with maybe lower income, then we have suddenly tools that they can actually use to make their film. So it's not just the access, so that they're also able to use these tools.
And it's exciting because we are seeing so many shorts coming out of both Epic and Unity. Both of these companies have supported through the pandemic by giving them fellowships and grants, and they're great filmmakers all around the globe making all kinds of shorts using real-time engine.
Yeah, and I experienced it a little bit personally when I was a mentor for women in animation in the mentor circles, and we had a circle of like 6 countries. And so I think that is also one thing where you combine it with your women in animation work, that you really went globally. I mean, I have a friend in Pakistan who actually joined one of the circles, not mine, another one. But it's beautiful because suddenly people have a chance to connect, to tell their stories, to afford the technology. So how did you... Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was how did you... how did you develop that with women in animation? You're also, I think, leading the global fund of women in animation.
So when we relaunched women in animation, that was back in I believe it was 2013. It was important that we would define a mission, and our mission became 50-50 by 2025, meaning that we wanted equal representation for women in the animation industry doing creative roles. So that was an initiative we announced back in 2015 with the goal of hitting 50-50 by 2025. We realized last year that in order to push our efforts, we had to really go beyond being LA-based, as well as we have chapters around, several chapters around the globe. But in order to really be effective at what we're doing, we had to go virtual. So we announced a global fund last spring to raise $1 million towards making WIA as accessible through the virtual world. So we were very, very lucky and fortuitous in our thinking. So when the pandemic hit, it became very quickly every program that we were offering in person had to turn virtual. But since we had done the work, we were able to quickly do that. And I'm proud to say that by end of this year, we will have mentored 1,000 girls from all around the globe. And I know, Imke, you're one of the mentors, and really appreciate all the great mentors that have volunteered. And I think, it's allowed these circles to create communities, especially, again, everyone working in isolation at home. It's given them an opportunity to create new communities, which I think is really important to build your career and succeed.
Yes, and I have to say it was a wonderful community also among the mentors. So we found ourselves with a global support system in all continents to do our work or to help filmmakers or to empower filmmakers. So I think that was a very inspirational circle or mentorship program. So that. Thank you. We will have probably after the film a little bit more time to also talk about storytellers and empowering storytellers. However, you recently told me also about seeing films that really impacted you, or that you really found were like important to talk about, important to show. So can you?
Yes. So we all know that great animated films is multi-generational and across all borders, and they have strong themes. But what I didn't realize until this year is the power of animation that can also tell stories that have huge social impact. And I was very fortunate to be sitting on a juror earlier this year where there were shorts and films that were being created that really talk about social injustice, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's about being an immigrant, or police torture, and so many different themes like this. And what's super exciting to me and was profound, and I was really truly impacted, is that that there are filmmakers out there telling these important stories. And I'm very proud today that we're going to be sharing 2 of those shorts today, and have the 2 filmmakers joining us. But I think that is something really important. And given how divided, the world is, and especially the U.S., it is important that these stories are being shared. And it's, part of global filmmaking. I believe that animation is more than just family entertainment, that we can use this medium to tell important messages that may be very difficult to show in live action. But again, using the art of animation allows you to share some of these important messages and stories and have an impact to society.
Yeah, definitely. Would you think that maybe also the art of animation is less confrontational than documentaries? It's very impactful and emotional, but also possibly less confrontational than seeing real people.
Absolutely. And we can get into that with Lawrence Ralph and both Lawrence and also with Maria on her film, because both of them have, very hard subject matters that they're talking about in their films. But with the beauty of animation, I think, there's a way to convey those messages. And what impact about those films, especially where they were dealing with very hard topics, but they left all of us at the end as audiences with a sense of hope. And that's, I think, is a very important thing, is that that we leave a sense of hope with these films. Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you. I was going to say, thank you, Maria. Such a inspirational and beautiful film dealing with very difficult subject matter.
Yes, and as you said, Jinko, ending on a hopeful tone or image.
Are you able to hear me? Okay.
Yes. Yes. I can hear you. I can see you. So I was wondering, because this is a really very impactful film, and what would be like looking at filmmakers, because I'm sure there are a lot of filmmakers that also would like to ask you, like, how can I tell my story? And they have stories like this, maybe also in their country, in their culture, in their family. And I would hope that we encourage them to find their voice. I think we may have a little bit of a sound issue.
I can hear you, Imke. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Okay.
Okay, we're back.
We're back. Good. This is like production. There's always something not quite going to plan. I was just wondering, like, is there anything that you want to tell filmmakers, like how you would say, like, they could do their first step? Or
I just think that animation is such a wonderful medium to tell these all kinds of stories. And again, like I said earlier, to see films like Where Were You, and we'll be seeing the torture letters shortly, is that the medium can be used in so many different ways. And I think being able to create shorts and films that have social impact, I think is really important, especially in the world we live today. So I'm just so grateful that we have such talented filmmakers wanting to share their stories using the animation medium.
Yeah, and it's also that when we spoke about the torture letters, it's also wonderful to choose animation as a medium, even though maybe not being familiar so much, but having understanding the emotional impact. So as we see torture letters later in the fireside chat, maybe you can tell us a little bit how you discovered the film and how you saw it.
Happy to do that, yes. I can hear you.
Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about the torture letters?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were going to say that for the fireside chat. Okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. So torture letters wasn't a short that we saw also earlier in the year. And it is a short written and directed and produced by Lawrence Ralph. He is professor of anthropology from Princeton University. And he, we'll talk about with them a little later, but he did this short because it was based on his book. And he was saying to me that he wanted to use animation as a medium to really share this emotional story that it was very difficult for him to do in writing. And also he wanted to, create the short so that children and teenagers could see this material and be seen and to be taught just the impact of police violence. And it's a global story, even though it's based on the Chicago police brutalities, but it is truly global. And again, I think using animation as a medium to tell these difficult stories allows you to share these stories globally and hopefully influence change and create awareness.
Yeah, and we're really looking forward to show it later, and also welcome Lawrence in the fireside chat. So after this FMX Spotlight ends, then we will hopefully see you all then afterwards in the fireside chat. I would like to introduce a new talent, a new producing talent, Jayen Chen. Jayen is a student at the Animationsinstitut of the Filmakademie Baden-Württemberg. And I think, Jayen, you can introduce yourself better than I could do it.
Hi, thank you. Hi, my name is Jayen, and I'm a student at Animationsinstitut Filmakademie, and I'm very happy to be a part of the conversation tonight, and very inspiring for me, and especially what's Jinko's opinion on impact film, and also the film with cultural impact. And talking about culture, because I'm from China and I'm already been German for 5 years, but I can still sometimes feel the culture and conflict or my original cultural impact inside of me. So, in this position, I want to ask Jinko, what's your intercultural background? Do you think it's kind of challenging for you, or it's actually a benefit for you?
Thank you, Gian. So nice meeting you. And so it's exciting to talk to students, especially students that want to be in producing, because I will tell you, my producing professor, Michael Hausman, who was Milos Forman's producer at Columbia, really did influence me, and he continues to remain to be a good friend after so many years. So it's always great to be meeting new students. In regards to your question about being an immigrant, and is that I think, when we came to this country, to the US, I did not speak a word of English, and that was already a handicap. But, my parents really wanted us to be in the school grades that we had left in Japan. So when I left Japan, we had just started the 3rd grade. So when we got to school in the fall here, my father, the school was saying, well, she doesn't speak any English, so we should put her back into grade 1. And my father said, well, give her a math test and see, what you think. We had learned how to do multiplication and division by the time we were in 3rd grade. So the teacher reluctantly agreed and put me in 3rd grade. So I always felt like I had to have a handicap that would advance me, and not have the fact that I was an immigrant become a handicap in the sense of not allowing me to do what I want to do. So I always looked for things that I could do better than others. And it started on with a very early age that I was always good at math. So that's something I used growing up. Then as I got older, I realized that being different meant that I had the ability to bridge the gap. And whether it was technology or race or the fact that I was a woman, I felt like I could be a bridge to the other side. So I, again, used the fact that I was different to become a bridge. And that's, I think, that's been my philosophy, and I think has allowed me to do what I do that I love very much, and continue for me to excel what I do. So I think we all find that in ourselves, is that, being different is okay. Being different was painful as a child, because I, there were instances, where we're purely being discriminated, the fact that I didn't look like the rest of the kids in the school. And going to engineering school, not alone was that I was different. There were very few girls in the engineering school. So we come through life accepting that being different can be a power. And that's what I would encourage everyone to think.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your answer. It's really inspiring to hear that, and I think it's very encouraging for us. And since I'm actually in the last year of my study, and I think here today many audience are also students. So what kind of, or what would you think would be our blind spots before, or what do you think, what should we take care of if we before we start our career?
So what I didn't realize, and what I can tell students today, is that it's important to have mentors, and to seek for those mentors, and then become mentors, because it's a two-way process. I've learned so much being a mentor, and I didn't have truly mentors in the way that we define mentors today, but I can tell you that there were people that were very influential in my career and in becoming an adult. But now there's a word called mentoring, and I truly encourage everyone to have mentors, and then also become a mentor, because you do learn a lot from your mentees. The other thing that's great is to build a community of like minds outside of school, of your school, and this is what's so great about our mentoring program that we have at Women in Animation, is that it allows you to create that virtual community with people that you would not have an opportunity to meet. But I think building that community is something very important, because you learn from each other's mistakes, and you can have authentic and honest conversation that is private and that you can share. And I think that's something that, again, I didn't know. And it's something that I would love for students to keep in mind, because that is something that will empower you as well.
Mm-hmm. So I'm very glad to have to see that some the organizations like Women for Animation, this kind of community, there's for us and speak for us. I think it's really it's great. And talking about Women for Animation, I think you have many roles in your life. So you are a producer, you are vice president for Women Animation, and also you write poets. So how can you balance your work-life balance, and how's your life philosophy?
So I have to be guilty for being a workaholic, but that's because I love what I do, and I have a hard time saying no. That's something that I have to learn all the time, is to say it's okay to say no. But I love what I do, and I think, one thing that I can leave everybody with is I recently read a wonderful book called Grit, and it's a book written by her name is Angela Duckworth, and Grit is about passion and perseverance. And I think, for all of us to succeed, we have to work hard. But I think having grit, having that passion and perseverance is something that it takes. And so, finding that life balance is hard. It's a struggle. It's a challenge. A lot of my family members are not happy with me because, like I said, I'm a workaholic. I work pretty much 7 days a week, and constantly, trying to figure out ways to do the best I can and to impact change, because there's such great opportunity right now for us to impact change, something that didn't exist 20 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. So I feel that that's my responsibility to impact change and to create path and open opportunities for women and people of color, and just international, and really try to tap into that global talent that's out there. That animation is truly a global industry, and there's talent all around the globe.
Thank you. Thank you for your answers, and I'm very glad to be here and listen your inspiring conversations today. Yeah.
Yeah. So what brought you to Germany? I'm just curious. Why did you come to Germany from China?
Because it was very it was very occasionally, because my parents was in Europe, and we think about new technology that we cannot learn in China, and so they know that there a great technology or opportunity in Europe or in Germany, so it's bringing here. Yeah.
Is your goal to go back to China and work, or will you stay in Europe and work?
Oh my God, it's the question I ask all the time, and I think I'm open for every opportunities, and I still have half a year, and I still have some projects working on, and after that we figure out if I stay here or go back to China. But I think for me, as a young student, I will say I really want to see more what the world look like and what the outside world look like. Yeah.
Well, good luck with you, and so great meeting you.
Thank you.
Before we open the chat for more questions, so please, if you have any questions that you would like to ask to Jinko or Jan or me, then please type them in the room chat. I would like to know, though, I'm not sure, Jen, everyone knows what the animation effects producing part is on Animationsinstitut. Maybe you can just briefly explain what you're studying and what it is the animation effects producing.
So here at the Animation Institute, we have many different opportunities working on different kind of projects such as 3D, 2D animation, and also VFX projects. And here you can also choose the project you are interested. So like different types of animation. And you can have your you can build your own team for your project and control the project from very beginning to the end to distribution, for example. And yeah, this is a kind of group introduction of the study here.
Thank you very much. And I just see that Vinny just posted the link to the book that you, or to the writer that you just recommended, Jinko, so that's very helpful. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for doing that.
And I'm just looking, we do have one question from a computer graphics and animation student from Serbia, and wanting to become an animation VFX producer. Good choice. But at the moment, as everything is closed, whether, Jinko, you have any tips how to enter virtual production work as an intern and start a career in this time of the pandemic when you can't really work or go anywhere to work?
I would suggest going on to both Epic and Unity's website and seeing the kind of programs that are offering, because they are offering a lot of programs, and just start joining. And I know that the virtual production world is a very friendly and community oriented world. So I would just dive in and see what you can find online and join. I think that's probably the best advice I can give you at the moment.
Yeah,
Imke, do you have any thoughts?
I have to say I made the impression that actually when you write an email to someone and you write who you are, what you would like, I tried it a few times and I always got a response. And I think it is also how you approach people. So I think networking surely is hard when you're not used to it. But I think that writing emails, connecting people, not just collecting LinkedIn contacts, but really connecting to people, maybe joining an association, like maybe joining Women in Animation, finding your way of like expanding your network. I think that's really helpful, and it's also terribly fun. So.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask your teachers at school for introductions, because introductions are also very helpful. It's hard for me to respond when somebody writes cold email to me, but when someone that knows me reaches out and saying, I have a student I really want to try and help, that also is something that I have a hard time saying no to. So, ask your teachers, ask professionals that you've gotten to know, and have them reach out for you. And I think most of them will, because they see that you're really passionate about what you want to do. I think everyone wants to help.
Definitely. Just having a look. We have questions for Jayan. Do you cooperate with companies during your studies of animation and VFX producing on your projects? And do you have any tips for new applicants for your study program?
So I do have, I don't have cooperation companies, but we have some companies that's sponsoring as sponsor, and they helped us assets and then shots working. And for the tips, I think very important, just as Jinko said that you should show your passion and show you're curious about the industry. And I think it's all of them. And be organized, I think is very important as a producer. Right, Jinko?
Yes. It's organization and firefighting.
Which leads to there's actually one question. What do you consider first when your new project comes in for your production? So is that organization and firefighting?
No, I think, it's all about planning, right? It's all about the prep. I think whether it's live action or animation, it's all about the prep. So planning, and then knowing what your pitfalls are, knowing, where you're going to have to keep a close eye on. I always, because I believe that we have to innovate and take risk if we want to do something creatively strong and powerful. So to really understand your pitfalls and to have a plan B of how do you deal with that pitfall if something doesn't work out. And then, of course, once production starts, I think a good producer has a couple of jobs. One is to be a partner to the filmmaker and to be a good listener and to be a communicator to the crew, which may involve, being a sheepdog. I often feel like I'm a sheepdog herding my team. And then, when you have crises, it's really firefighting mode and making sure that you make sure that no one's going to get hurt, that no one's going to be sick, and you become basically the firefighter. But hopefully, that the planning and the knowing the pitfalls keep you from not having to firefight every day. But it does become a firefighting that is part of the norm. I think if you're not fighting for that best image or the best scene or the best story beat, I don't think you are working hard. I think every great film involves a lot of firefighting, a lot of planning, a lot of pitfalls, having plan Bs. And I think, again, it's about that passion and perseverance and really stand behind that the creative choices that the filmmaker is making and supporting that filmmaker to succeed. And whatever that takes, I think that's what makes a great producer. And not being afraid to say if something isn't working, that it's not working. And to be a best friend to the filmmaker, because if you feel that the story isn't working or something doesn't look right, you can't be afraid not to say that, because you've got to make sure that we're setting up the filmmakers to succeed.
That's a really motivational answer, I think, for every producer out there. We have one more question. I think we have time for that. Caroline is asking, when did you decide to become a producer? Was it an easy decision to switch from math, computer science to producing?
Yes, very easy, because as much as I loved math and computer science, I could not see myself doing this for life. And whereas I think I've always been a pretty good organizer since I was a child, and I liked producing events in schools. And so just the notion of the fact that I could be a producer and seeing how producers worked when I was at film school made me realize this is really what I want to do. So it was pretty easy.
Good. Thank you very much. I think I would hand over to Tina, because this is not a goodbye yet. Whoever wants to join us in the fireside chat later, we're still going to be here. But Tina, I hand over to you, but not without thanking Jinko for this part already. Thank you for joining us. It's been really amazing. This time went so quickly. So over to you, Tina, and see you in the fireside chat.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone, to Jinko for sharing your experience and your thoughts with us. As Jayen said, it was really inspiring, especially what you said about difference as a bridge and a power. I really like that. Thank you also, Imke, for being here with us today and your questions and moderating this talk. And thanks, Jayen, for your perspective on from a student side and your questions. And thanks, Maria, for sharing your film with us. Now, as Imke said, stay with us if you still have some time. you can turn on your microphones and cameras and really talk to our guests now. And as we've already heard, we have another screening of the film Torture Letters by Lawrence Ralph, and both filmmakers, Lawrence and Maria, will be in the fireside chat, and you can ask the filmmakers directly. But before we go on, just a quick reference to our next FMX Spotlight show, which will take place in 2 weeks on the 14th of December, when our research and development department, led by Professor Volker Hälsle and their partners, their project partners, present the final results of their research project SAUCE, Smart Asset Reuse in Creative Environments. This will be very technical and very interesting. And now we move on, or rather we stay, I would say. So please, as I said, you can unlock your cameras and microphones if you want to go on asking questions or chatting with us. Thank you everyone who doesn't have time to stay for being here with us tonight, and see you again for the next FMX Spotlight. And I'm happy that we can continue this conversation.